Hey there, welcome back. This is Shireen, and welcome back to our beginner level series, Introduction to Photoshop. Once again, this is for people who have little to no familiarity with the basic Photoshop tools. We're making our way. We've been through our selection tools. We got introduced to our photo editing tools, our groupings over here, selection tools here, photo editing tools, this grouping of tools here that takes advantage of ContentAware. If you're not sure what I'm talking about, be sure to check the playlist for Photoshop tutorials and check out the photo editing demo there. But I'm just going to do a quick video here for one of the other superstars of the photo editing world, the clone stamp tool. And I'm revisiting this file that's in front of you because this was featured in the other video, and I said I was going to get back to it to do a little bit more focus on being able to heal or manipulate or edit photos. So with these tools here, ContentAware, just as a super quick review, ContentAware kind of takes into consideration the pixels around the area that you're trying to heal. And so, for example, here there's a few specks there. Let me kind of zoom in, right? A little bit of specks, probably the beautiful sun hitting the water. I can just kind of go ahead and get rid of those, and it really tries to get it to look like one. It just integrates it to be like one of the waves similar to what's around it. So that's the ContentAware functionality. But as you can see here, there was something here, and when I tried to use the ContentAware healing brush, it took into consideration a bit of the sand and some of the bungalows that were around. So to me, this is not really the best solution. So I'm actually leaving it open because I want to show you that up here in my history panel, it showed that I tried valiantly with my spot healing brush to fix or heal that area, but it didn't work. So let's go back to when that boat was still there. It was just an empty sort of little boat floating, and let's say that I want to get rid of it. Healing brush didn't work. Now it's time to step it up to the clone stamp tool. And what the clone stamp tool does, once I hit option, I'm basically saying take information from here, and you can see it's giving you a preview, and it's saying don't take into consideration the pixel that are around it. Don't worry that right above this boat is lots of sand and greenery. Just use the information I'm giving you to clone out or to stamp out the area that I need to edit. So one of the major things to consider when we're using the clone stamp is that we're working with a brush. So you'd want to make sure for clone stamp, I usually use 50% or less. Sometimes I use 0% hardness because if I really want the softest possible brush to do an edit. But for here, I think, 40, something like that in this range. It doesn't need to be super soft and airy. And the size, I just need it to be big enough to cover that little boat. So I think we're good. Another thing to keep in mind, the opacity right now, yes, I want it to be 100% to cover that little boat. The flow, think about an airbrush and how it's sort of flowing out, dispersing out of that brush. So not 100%, but maybe 80%, something like that. I like to, not the hardest brush, I like it to be a little bit soft. Again, these just kind of thinking about if you're doing your makeup, you want it to be sort of soft, right? That soft, gentle touch is the way to go. But so that's for the flow, it's just for the speed and the rate out of which the color is coming out. So I'm going to have those selected. I can also enable more airbrushing style to kind of build up the effect slowly. So I'm going to have that selected. And last but not least, I do want it to be, I want aligned to be checked. And in this case, I'm going to say current layer because if I check at my layers panel, there's only one layer. So let's get started. I'm going to hit option to sample a surrounding area. And you see it's not too shabby, but you see how this area and this look exactly the same. So let me pull from some other different waves so that it doesn't look exactly the same. I'm going to keep hitting option maybe from this angle, maybe pull some of the information from here. And I'm kind of just doing my best. I'm going to zoom in. What am I using to zoom in? Command and space bar is my keyboard shortcut to zoom in. I'm going to reduce the size of my brush. Again, I could do it from here, or I can use the bracket keys on my keyboard. On a Mac keyboard, they're the ones next to the P. So I'm going to just make that a little bit smaller so I can get into that corner, and I'm pretty much done. Let's zoom out. Let me actually, since I'm here, I'll go ahead and grab these guys. Oops. Let's zoom back out. Not too bad. I think we're looking pretty great. Oh, here's some more of these white flecks. But again, the difference between that one, the spot healing brush, I think can do a pretty good job, because if it's going to take into consideration the pixels surrounding the area, in this case it's all water, it's all blue, so I have nothing to fear. But it's when you hit up against areas where there's conflicting information. The information from here is blue, the information from here is sand and green, so that's why we would want to get in there with the clone stamp tool to say, regardless of the information around it, use the information I'm giving you to create that healing. And so one other last thing that I could kind of mention in terms of clone stamp, I could also, if I choose, work on a separate layer. And if I'm doing that with clone stamp, let's say, for example, I want to clone out, let's say, a little bit of that white strip. You see the white strip is kind of worn out. So if I want to clone out a little bit more of that, I could work on a separate layer if I want to do a non-destructive edit to the actual photo. So I want to leave the photo as it is, but let's see what would happen if I, on a separate layer, trace out a little bit more of that line out on the street. I could say current and below, or even all layers, depending on the number of layers I have. And so once again, I can come here, I can hit Option. I'm really going to want to zoom in, and you'll see it really will actually help me to really line up. Pretty cool. All right, so I could continue drawing out that line on my own if I so wished. That, as you see, is on its own layer. So at any point, if I like it to look more run down and worn down the way it was, I could go back, or I can leave that layer active and continue to keep drawing out. You see, it's like taking that preview, and it's allowing me really nicely. There's hardly can tell. So when we zoom out. All right, so once again, that's on its own separate layer. To be able to do that non-destructive edit, I have sample, current, and below, or all layers selected. Once again, I'm working with my brushes. Opacity and flow I can keep. I like it a little bit less than 100 for flow, just to be, to have a little bit more control, and aligned is checked. So that's it for the clone stamp tool. That plus my grouping of tools here, Spot, Healing, Healing, Patch, and ContentAware, already give you a pretty good head start with photo editing. Next video, we'll start taking a little bit closer look at our layers panel. If you have any questions, please ask in the comments below. Don't forget to subscribe. Thank you so much for your support, and good luck. See you next time.